All right. Hello, and welcome everyone. My name is Devin Hogan. I am the Minneapolis DFL chair. I have had the honor and privilege of serving as your chair since the year 2018. As a person who has voted Democratic their entire life, a farmer who runs a cooperative market garden on Nicollet Avenue, and is a laborer who serves as the parliamentarian of my union's local, I'm very proud to call myself a DFLer. Also during this Pride Month, I'm very proud to be out and queer as a non-binary person, and representation matters and I see you. So as your party chair, I've helped to spearhead the effort to reinvent caucuses from scratch and to put them on the internet this year due to COVID. We've more than doubled our caucus turnout from 2017, and to my knowledge, 2021 has been the best attended caucus in decades, with the notable exception of 2016. I do want to give a special kudos and thanks to the members of the Minneapolis DFL Central Committee and the 60 participating campaigns citywide seeking endorsement for spending a lot of time together since last October to help make everything happen. Also, special shout out to our ward committees who are putting on these events today. And thank you to everyone who's attending us live or pre-recorded on this hot summer Sunday. So the purpose of these events is for you to get to know the candidates better and to give the candidates an opportunity to have more time to explain to you why they're asking for your support. We've sent out a form for delegates to submit questions, and these questions will be used for the candidate forum in the second part of today's event. Now, as the chair of the DFL in Minneapolis, the endorsement is actually my favorite part of all the work that we do. It's Democrats coming together to agree that this is the person who most represents our values as Democrats. So in a big tent, there's always going to be disagreements, but endorsement, as I mentioned, emphasizes coming together. I think that's something pretty cool and worth celebrating, and that's why I'm very happy to be here today. Now, my second favorite part is I get to flex on how Ward 9 has influenced my life in Minneapolis and how it's meaningful to me. That's pretty easy. I live in Ward 9. I actually just moved here in February, and I thought my previous home for 10 and a half years was in the Lindale neighborhood, and just the thought of leaving there was so mind-blowing to me that it's the only place I've ever lived in Minnesota. But I'm very happy to say that having lived in Ward 9 just for the last few months, I love it, absolutely love it to death. I've gotten close with my neighbors, gotten to meet a lot more folks just within the last few months than I've had in years in my previous home. Now I get to move on to the contractually obligated parts to pass the hat. So the Minneapolis DFL is 100% volunteer run and sustained on small dollar donations. Right now our average donation is around $22, $23, and every bit helps us do the work. You can donate any amount at minneapolisdfl.org/donate. That's minneapolisdfl.org/donate. And if you haven't given to a political candidate or party this year, you can get up to $50 of your donation refunded via the Minnesota Political Contribution Refund Program. Now, finally, I'm going to explain your ballots. We are very lucky to, as of 24 hours ago, have had over 65% of ward delegates already cast their ballots. But you can re-vote as often as you'd like until 11:59 p.m. this Tuesday, and only your most recent vote will be accepted and counted. So on that, I'm going to now introduce our co-host Zainab Mohammed. And what we're going to do today is hear from each of the candidates. They'll give a 5-minute speech similar to as we were to have an in-person convention. And following that, we will have a forum where each candidate will be asked the same question and given a minute to respond to that question. Then after that, we'll hear from some park board candidates. So I'll pass it along to you, Zainab, after you.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us. Those of you that are watching, and Devin, thank you so much for putting so much work and effort voluntarily. You are greatly appreciated. Thank you, candidates, for joining us. I will be asking questions, like Devin said, and you will each have 1 minute to answer each question. Our first question is around public safety. It will be in the chat.
Before, if I may, the introductory speeches.
Yes, sorry. We will do introduction speeches to start with. I apologize. And each candidate will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves. And we'll have Mickey Moore go first.
Unmute. Okay. So hi, my name is Mickey Moore. I'm happy to be here, honored to be here today to share with you why I'm running to represent Ward 9. I was born and raised in South Minneapolis by a single mom, on poverty, food stamps, public assistance housing. And for a magna cum laude graduate and a Peace Corps volunteer to give birth to a biracial fatherless kid in 1969 was not easy. She instilled core democratic values like equality, tolerance, and activism. She was fighting for social justice long before it was a popular concept. My mother worked hard to earn her master's degree and continued to improve her prospects until she was able to purchase a house and show me how a person moves from struggle to success. In 1996, I opened the Braid Factory, which began the natural hair braiding industry in Minnesota. This year, the Braid Factory celebrates its 25th anniversary, and the metro area now has over 45 natural hair care salons. I've owned and operated several successful businesses in the Twin Cities, managing and training people, balancing budgets, and working with various city, county, and state agencies. I've also gainfully employed hundreds of people, including those from our chronically underserved communities. As a small business owner for over 30 years, I have real expertise in the many critical areas necessary to make the Ninth Ward more equitable, inclusive, and prosperous. Now, we're in the midst of a public safety crisis. Unlike some of my opponents, I'm not in favor of abolishing or defunding the police. I'm in favor of reimagining a system that establishes more effectiveness, oversight, and accountability for our department. This means providing better training, equipment, and methods that develop a greater partnership and sense of unity. It means supporting our chief and empowering him with the authority to discipline and terminate bad officers. And this is why I'm endorsed by groups like our local firefighters union. Our business districts have been decimated, devastated, including our small, medium, minority, and immigrant-owned businesses, all areas where I have decades of experience. We have one shot to restore our business infrastructure with over $500 million of federal stimulus funding, but only if we have competent representation to make sure that Ward 9 gets our fair share. Access and equal distribution of this recovery aid is an imperative first step for our business districts, and not a 1/13th portion. We need someone capable of making real demands and decisions that will be taken seriously. Someone who understands budgets and business and can successfully articulate our message of need. I'm the only candidate who has decades of business experience to ensure that we all get what we deserve. People feel disconnected from elected officials who make decisions that impact our lives. We need a more reflective representation that filters all policies through a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have to proactively partner with residents and business owners to ensure that everyone is heard and we all have a seat at the table. This is why I initiated the idea of the full-time local ward office, and I'm the only candidate who has a plan and a budget to actually do it, allowing local needs to be handled right here without any appointment by people who are part of our community. We also need regular town hall meetings, leaders involved in local association meetings, more listening sessions, accountability, accessibility, transparency, and I lead by example, which is why I'm the only candidate who openly advertises and answers his own phone and who was already pledged to give away the bulk of my city council salary. Imagine living in a city where radical extremists are in control, where public agencies and programs are budgeted and run by people who don't know what they're doing and refuse to listen to the majority of voters, where inexperienced lawmakers are used like puppets by outside organizations unconcerned with our best interests, and social safeguards are dismissed arbitrarily. This is what we're going to get if we elect candidates who hope to defund or abolish the police. We've all seen and felt the cost of this kind of immature messaging, the misguided priorities that cater to big developers and gentrification. We've seen the unhoused treated as criminals instead of treated as human beings. And our leaders support destroying a building and creating more pollution instead of a community-based, environmentally just concept. People have had enough. It's time for better, fairer representation. We need balanced, nonpartisan, unbiased, and responsive leadership that always prioritizes the needs of voters. This requires an experienced professional with a long track record of success, someone who has struggled to accomplish great things in the past and can now put that commitment and experience to work on your behalf. If elected, I will partner with every resident and business owner to ensure that we all have a shot at the American dream. We do have significant problems in Ward 9 and in our city, and one person can't change them all alone. When you vote for me, you're agreeing to join with me in creating a partnership of like-minded individuals who want to create a better, safer, more prosperous and peaceful city for everyone to enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Haji. You're next.
Unmuted, you can hear me. Thank you so much, Devin. Thank you so much, Zainab, Mike, and Jason, and all of us collectively in this place and the space that we're all sharing. Welcome. Ward 9 has been my home for a long time. My story started about 22 years ago, right across from Lake Streets, living with 7 other roommates. Starting my life with nothing, just a bag, about $150 in my pocket. But what I see and what I often have experienced for the last 22 years is we are always facing the same issues, challenges and barriers, access to equal opportunity, racial and ethnic disparities, rents being too high, public safety issue, and also when it comes to our environment and where we stand on those issues as well. You're all my neighbors. This is our city. This is our ward. We have been in the news lately, to be honest, and seeing what's happening. It breaks all of our hearts to see what our communities are going through and the challenges that we're facing as we're moving forward, trying to answer some of these important questions, transformative questions that we need to deal with moving forward into the future, and how we want to look at it is very important. I do know that we do need new leadership in the City Hall, and with your help, we can bring back Ward 9 so that it's safer, so that it's successful, so that we can collectively, all of us and our children and all of us together, call it a place, a home. As you all know, maybe I want to officially let you know, my name is Yusuf Haji. I am, yes, Somali American. I'm a father of 4. I have been a community activist for a long time. You can always look me up. Written a lot of articles on many issues, been at the forefront fighting racism, people that hate others, and also on the issues of our neighbors was important to me. So I do care a lot. I'm kindly asking you today also, so you are able to represent Ward 9. And as a father also, I run my own business in Ward 9 on Lake Streets. I supply a lot of products to the local businesses here in Lake Streets. I also run, I'm the first person to run a multilingual media company that speaks to all languages. I don't know if you've seen my Spanish speaking video recently that I made. Hopefully you can look that out. I try to learn, I try to teach myself. I try to walk on everyone's shoes, just so I can feel what is their daily struggles and how they're going about it. This is very important. I work for Minnesota Revenue. I've been part of the union at the Minnesota at the state level. I have fought at the front and used my voice to make sure that we don't have to pay our student loans. It's too high and it's too expensive. But that's not for now. Moving forward, currently, and a lot of people didn't know this, in the last 2 years, I've been serving as a member of Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Advisory Committee for MPRP 2021. So I'm working on that vision of how our park boards will look like moving forward. And one of the things I've advocated for is our unhoused communities and what space can they occupy moving, what vision we can have for them. I've had years of experience in public eye, like I said before. I'm an activist and advocate as well in Minnesota. I've been speaking against racism, Islamophobia, and many forms of discrimination. I know Zainab is taking that mantle now, and I'm glad she is. She's at the forefront, fighting on these issues, and I encourage everyone else to emulate and follow that footsteps. It's rewarding. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to, not rewarding. It is the right thing to do when we speak for others who cannot speak for themselves much more often. Now I want to contribute in new ways. I feel I can contribute more by initiating conversation of future of policing, our environment. As an activist, I'm working as a council Ward 9. I dedicate my time and resources, and I want to run a campaign that is centered on positivity and progress. as I said, my campaign is also about integrity, honesty in every interaction. And I have with all of you, and I'm looking forward to representing 01 fairly. It will be a great privilege to serve our diverse community. And I mean, I'm not taking this lightly. Yesterday, on medication, is my time up?
Yes, thank you, Haji. We appreciate it, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Chavez.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Hello, everyone. I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. My name is Jason Chavez. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm running to become the Minneapolis City Council here in the 9th Ward, the ward I was born and raised in and currently also live in. I was born and raised in the East Slopes neighborhood by my Mexican immigrant parents who escaped violence and poverty from Mexico in a small village de Matzaco. I'm a proud LGBTQ plus Latino, a renter, an organizer, a policy worker at the state legislature, and more so importantly, fighting to work alongside the ward that raised me. The 9th Ward is in a pivotal moment, and we need a leader that will work for the community, alongside the community, and that will put people first. We currently have a public safety system that isn't working, and we know that reform and repairing cannot work to solve this system, but we also know that we need a new system of public safety that will actually protect the lives of Black, Brown, and Indigenous Southsiders here in Ward 9. I also know that we need to work hard to make sure that MPD stops deporting undocumented immigrants and stops collaborating with ICE to make sure that our immigrant families, our Latinx immigrant families, and people that are undocumented here in the 9th Ward actually feel safe. It is also no secret that we have economic disparities here in the 9th Ward and that the youth here have been forgotten about. We need to begin the fight beyond the $15 minimum wage because we know that that $15 is not enough to sustain families here in the South Side. We also need to create youth employment programs that actually help our youth and intervene early to make sure that when they grow up, they actually have opportunities to live. Last summer, we also saw our community stand up for our unhoused neighbors when the government watched and bulldozed a lot of our community members here that are unhoused, which is why I really want to fight for a comprehensive housing bill of rights that includes rent control, work that I've been doing at the Capitol to help end preemption to allow cities to enact it statewide, making sure we have right to council funding, that we pass the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, making sure we do housing first initiatives to allow people to actually live the life that they deserve to live, and making sure our buildings are up to code. Fires take the lives of people, and having sprinklers in buildings will allow us to save our community members. By day, I work at the state capitol, like I mentioned earlier. I work with unions to pass working class agendas. So I've been working on unemployment insurance that we expanded back in December, working with youth and paraprofessionals to allow them to actually qualify for unemployment insurance, working on paid family medical leave, sick and safe time, like I mentioned earlier, ending and lifting preemption on rent control. And then the most important part, I would talk about the Promise Act, working to bring back $267 million to rebuild Lake Street to make sure that we're not bringing corporations back, but actually bringing back our small businesses here because they're the ones that need the support, and we don't want to lose our culture here on Lake Street. And by night, I'm an organizer. I work for immigration and housing justice alongside Pueblos de Lucha y Esperanza. That includes working with immigrant families here on Powderhorn Park to stop the displacement of them, and making sure that we also work for immigration justice at the state level, city level, and a federal level. And also working alongside Unidos. Last summer, our ward was going through a lot. We had no grocery stores. And what we did was making sure we had pop-up food banks all over Ward 9 to make sure people actually had access to food when grocery stores were shut down. And also making sure we were going door to door to make sure we can drop off food to people that needed the support. I just appreciate you all being here today. My name is Jason Chavez Cruz. Like I mentioned earlier, my pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a proud LGBTQ plus Latino, a community organizer, a renter, a policy worker at the state legislature, and I'm going to be fighting for the 9th Ward every single day.
Thank you so much. Now we'll get to the questions part. Each person will have 1 minute to answer each question. And just to make it clear, these questions are directly from delegates in your ward that will be voting. So no pressure there. Our first question is around public safety. What is your exact step-by-step from day one in office plan for the crime in the area? I don't want to hear generalities. I would like to know the actual specific plan with everything from the timeline to the proposed needed to the budget implications. Haji, you're going to be the first one to answer this.
Thank you.
The question is also in the chat.
Yep. Thank you so much for that question. I think it's a very important question. I'll be very honest with you. First of all, policing needs to change fundamentally. That is something we all have to understand. And it's why I fully support the charter amendments that will create a new Department of Public Safety to oversee the Minneapolis Public Police Departments. Policing has not proven to create a safety for our communities. Period. When all you have is a hammer, everything then looks like a nail. And for me, what I look at it two ways. I look at short-term and long-term goal. Our short-term goal right now is we have a community that is going through high crime. We have a community that is in fear, understandably. And one of the ideas right now I want to propose, because knowing that very well, fundamentally, we need to transform how we police our community. We are going to start right now. My plan to start is having mental health professionals, psychologists, community leaders going out in Ward 9 and into this neighborhood, especially places that have been overtaken by drug dealers that are pushing issue of safety in around Ward 9 to be approached, hopefully reaching out to people that have been affected by either the drug use or people that are being bullied or pushed into doing things. But we can retake that.
Thank you, Haji. I'm sorry. We only have 1 minute. It's a long question.
Very long
but,
question.
We'll get more. So thank you.
Okay.
It's a long question. They have only 1 minute to answer. So apologies about that.
Mickey Moore.
Yes, it's really deserves a lot more than a minute. But let me just point out that besides the idea of supporting our chief, besides the idea of establishing the proper resources in terms of staffing, equipment, training, funding, besides the idea of implementing the strategic reforms, this solution involves more than that. It involves attacking the underlying issues of economic development, of well-funded, proven youth programs, of attacking with intelligent, comprehensive strategies, the idea of affordable housing and our education gap. It's such a comprehensive question that it really involves much more than the time that we've got right here. I would encourage people to call me because I love to talk about this issue because it is extremely complex and my number is available everywhere. So if you really want to know, if you'd like to hear about some of the 17 reform points that we have in terms of changing our transportation policing and changing our traffic division and involving mental health professionals, please call me up and we can talk about this anytime in depth.
Jason?
Is it my turn? Hello?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I just want to be clear that what we have been doing for years has not worked. And what we have done instead is respond to crime instead of prevent it. So if we're gonna be fighting to stop crime, we need to make sure that we're actually doing violence prevention, which includes working with community partners and emergency response teams that are trained to de-escalate situations in the 9th Ward, that work to end sexual exploitation, and are working hard to build relationships here in the 9th Ward. I want to lead on starting a City of Minneapolis crime prevention program where we would provide trainings to the people of Minneapolis in groups of 5 to 10 that would help you be trained on how to prevent your bike or car from being stolen, or making sure that you are aware of your surroundings to make sure that you're as safe as possible. But I'm also going to mention that we need 4 things to prevent crime here. We need gun control, which means we need to work with our state legislature. We also need to know how to work on a housing bill of rights that I mentioned earlier, and also making sure we have that economic development, fighting beyond that $15 minimum wage, making sure we have youth employment for our youth, and also making sure we address the income inequalities and housing issues that we have here in the 9th Ward. Sorry, I know that was quick, so I had to speak fast.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next question, actually, I'm gonna throw it right back to you, Jason. You're gonna be the first one to answer it. There will be a number of charter amendments on the ballot concerning public safety and government structure. Which amendment do you support, and how is your position consistent with maximizing the representation and strength of the interest of Ward 9 at City Hall?
Yeah, so I 100% support the Yes for Minneapolis campaign that will create a new Department of Public Safety and keep Black, Brown, and Indigenous people safe here in the 9th Ward, and also support enacting the rent stabilization amendment with the United for Rent Control movement here that's working. I also want to mention that George Floyd was murdered near our ward. Dalal Eid was killed in December in our ward, and our communities have continued to face this violence that is occurring in our ward. We have this police system that has existed for 154 years, and we haven't made any significant changes to it that would have prevented any of the killings that have happened in recent history. And it's time for us to be creative to find actual public safety solutions that centers violence prevention. Sorry, someone's calling me. Centers violence prevention and sees the value of life. Oh my goodness, can they stop calling me? Sorry, y'all, somebody's calling me, and I don't know if y'all can see that. I also want to mention the reason I support rent control is because our community continues to be bulldozed and people have to choose between food and rent, and that just needs to stop. And that's one of the reasons why I support that. So, sorry. Let me just, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then just put your phone on Do Not Disturb Me. The next person that's going to answer this is going to be Mickey Moore.
Yeah, the charter amendment regarding public safety is an ill-advised and a poorly crafted amendment. The one regarding government structure only exists because we're facing so many significant problems right now. If this was another administration in another era of our city with the same exact structure, nobody would be talking about changing the government structure. So I don't support those charter amendments because we have better options. With public safety, we have the option, like Mr. Chavez said, we haven't changed our police department in generations. We need to do that. We need to change structurally our police department to incorporate the intelligent and positive reforms that are available to us. And regarding our government structure, the way to change our government isn't through charter amendments, it's through the voting booth. By getting rid of the irresponsible and undisciplined city leaders and bringing in a new group of responsible and responsive representatives, we will structurally change and upgrade our government on its own through the voting process. And that's the way we should approach it.
Thank you, Haji.
Could you repeat the question, Zainab?
Yeah, there will be a number of charter amendments on the ballot concerning public safety and government structure. Which amendment do you support, if any, and how is your position consistent with maximizing the representation and strength of the interest of Ward 9 at City Hall?
Like I've said before, we need to be transformative moving forward, and I support the Yes for Minneapolis charter amendments. As you all know, speaking as a father of four, speaking as historically and looking at what we have, the current model of policing has not been working for many of our neighbors. And you have to understand, and it has to come from a place of knowing that historically, if you're not aware, then you're stuck in the past and it's time to move on. Policing is about creating safety for all our communities. Well, all you have is hammer, like I said, and everything looks like a nail. Then police are not equipped, like I said, to deal with every situation they're presented with, nor should they be. To me, this is fundamentally shows that the goals of relocating dollar from the police are correct, and to create an alternative response method of reinvesting in our communities. However, from the previous question, I just want to add on and say, we need to allow the MPD staffing level to stabilize to budget level in order to help address the uptick in gun violence and violent crimes that we are seeing here, primarily due to the economic fallout and the marginalization from the COVID pandemic. And more importantly, MPD is still responsible for the safety of people in Ward 9. They need to be patrolling our ward. They need to be on foot. They need to be walking. They need to be on bikes. They don't need to be coming like a military trying to take over and looking at everything as an emergency. So they are still responsible as we continue talking about how we're going to change this for the better and the representation of everyone in Ward 9.
Thank you, Haji.
Thank you, Haji. Our next question.
I do just, before we get into the next question, I do just want to say I love that so many people are running this year. I've been a candidate myself, and I'm just so happy to be a part of this. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Zainab. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm just very excited.
Happy for you too, Devin.
And people are asking the right questions. You would think I wrote these questions myself, but no, you guys, these are from your delegates, so they're really good questions. Okay, our next question is, will you help Minneapolis set up a safe and supervised injection sites? This question is near and dear to my heart. Haji, you're gonna go first.
First day I started door knocking, the first thing I see is a big box right on East Phillips, and it has this injection disposal, right? I thought it was too small. We need to make it bigger, and it needs to be available in all languages, in Spanish, in Somali, in Oromo, in French, whatever language, whatever people call Ward 9 and they live here and they speak that language, then we need to be able to have access to this. This is something that I look forward to, really, as something that I want to put on my agenda if I'm elected as next city councilman. Like, representation is important, and representation in language and culture is even more important, because people feel included in this process, right? Everything is in English, every letter is in English, right? And I think that is not enough. When we have places like this, right, and you have a community that has been recently immigrated to this space in Ward 9 that they call home, and most of them really don't know what's going on, and it's not fair. It's not fair. And I think these are spaces that we can use, but it has to be representative of every one of us. And we need to make it bigger. We need to make it accessible and go further. And why not? You have cigarette kills,
So thank you, Haji.
Yes.
We are at time. Yes, I know 1 minute is very hard.
It is.
These are big questions. Appreciate it.
Mickey Moore.
Well, we need to do two things. If we're going to have these supervised injection sites, we need to make sure that we have done the proper research and brought in the experts and checked out the cities and areas that it's been proven to be effective in the past. We don't want to try something and guinea pig something that's going to be ineffective or actually do more harm than good. Number two, we need to make sure that we're working cooperatively with our communities to make sure this is something that they agree with and approve of. Like you asked in the previous question, maximizing the representation of the interests of Ward 9. Both of my opponents indicated that they support the Yes for Minneapolis petition, yet the vast majority of our ward constituents don't support that. So I'm in favor of doing what our ward wants to do and making sure that we always cooperatively partner with our ward residents and business owners to make sure we are acting on their behalf and not on our own emotional, personal self-interest or our own political agendas.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Jason.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I just want to make it clear. Yes, I support it 100%. I also know that experts have already been here and have been doing the work, and it is proven that this will reduce the number of overdoses in our ward, which will result to less death and will also help with the safe and clean environment for people that are using it, right? So I want to make sure that if we care about people not dying in our ward because of overdoses, this is one step in our toolbox that can help prevent that. That's it. I want to go back to the last question because I got sidetracked when someone called me about the government structure one. I do not support a government structure change, and anybody that supports it, the reason they support it is because they will not allow you to have any say when you become a city council member. The reason I'm running is because I'm running a community-led, community-centered ward, and what that means is that if this other amendment passes, our ward will not have a say on what we get to do. So I want to make sure that people know that if they approve that ballot measure, our ward will not have a say on what we get to do in government.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. This next question, Mickey Moore, you're going to answer first. What is your plan to ensure a full recovery for the businesses along Lake Street, and what specific opportunities do you see for helping BIPOC-owned businesses and entrepreneurs?
Great question. Well, this is why I'm putting myself out there in Ward 9 because of my vast decades of business experience, especially with the small and medium-sized minority-owned, immigrant-owned businesses, owned and oriented businesses. Right now, our federal government is putting forth a plethora of awesome opportunities for accessing financing and funding. Small Business Administration has program after program targeting immigrant-owned businesses, small businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-oriented owned businesses. These kind of programs are great and useful, and we need to take absolute 100% advantage of them, 110%, which is why I want to have a local ward office so we have somebody on the ground partnering with our local businesses to make sure we're matching them up with the resources and funding opportunities that we have. Because aside from the federal stimulus money, aside from the $500 million from the Fed, aside from the 150, 200, 250 that we may or may not get from the state, we need to take advantage of every program that's out there if we're going to get our businesses back up to even par with where they were before all our problems.
Thank you so much. We've gotten a lot of questions, and I want to make sure I cover at least almost all of the topics. The next question is going to be around, do you support a ban on...
Jason, we still need the other candidates.
Jason, go ahead. I apologize.
I was like, oops. Yeah, so I currently, right now, I work at the Minnesota House for the Workforce and Business Development Committee. So I'm leading the efforts at the state to rebuild Lake Street. I mentioned earlier with the Promise Act that would bring $267 million back for rebuilding efforts. And my hope is to use that funding once I'm a council member to make sure that we use this money for our small businesses, not our corporations. The entire world is watching Minneapolis right now. And on day one, and I wish we did this right now, I'll convene an emergency meeting with our US senators, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and the office of President Joe Biden to make sure that Lake Street is a priority in investment, along with fighting against the displacement and gentrification that might occur here in Lake Street and Ward 9. And what we also need to do is make sure that Hennepin County and the city of Minneapolis are working together to create COVID and rebuilding efforts tailored to our small businesses, and also want to make sure that we not only help Lake Street, but help 38th in Chicago, the Midtown Global Market, and help any small businesses here in the 9th Ward to make sure that we are supporting them with COVID relief, also helping with rebuilding efforts and assisting them with anything that they need, along with making sure that we have community ownership of buildings, because we know our small businesses need that support.
Haji, right on time, by the way.
Thank you, Zainab. Thank you so much. For me, this is an important issue, right? Like I said, I'm a big part of Lake Street business. I deal with organic cosmetics, and I supply a lot of the business owners and community-owned businesses on Lake Streets. For me, we must rebuild Lake Streets, and that takes collective effort from elected leaders, from state, federal, and all of us collectively in trying to rebuild it. And small business is very much integral to the health of our local economy and national economy. And also it will improve the quality of life of residents for 9. As you all know, we're high up from within our own communities, right? The small businesses of our multicultural community create the cornerstone of the local economy. This is why I want to fight so hard for them to receive the proper recognition and assistance they need to thrive and grow. I have spoken to many of these businesses, and they are most of them are Muslim-owned businesses, and our Latino community as well have spoken to me. And most of them, interest is they will very much welcome no interest loans, improve access, quick access to funding, reduction in obstacle to obtaining financing.
Sorry, Haji, your time is up. Do you support the next question, Haji, you're going to answer first, actually. Do you support a ban on fracked gas for heating and cooking in new development in the city, or other quick transitions to electric heating, cooking in the city? If so, how would you accomplish this?
Yes, we need to move on to renewable energy. We cannot continue poisoning our environments and our communities using some of these fossil fuels. So we do need to invest in solar. We need to invest in other forms of energies to be able to use. We have one of the greatest institutions right here in Minneapolis. Why can't we not fund funding so that they can do research on renewable energy that is safer to our communities and to our city, and moving it and be an example to everyone else, so we can create this future that is safe for all of us. And we can do that, and I'm willing to put my work into it and finding solutions so that our city, our community can be able to be sustaining itself using what we have naturally and without harming our communities.
Jason Chavez?
Yes, the short answer is yes. I think I would support also expanding like the inclusive finance program that will be made to be more accessible for our Black, Brown, and Indigenous community members and those of working class backgrounds, to make sure that this can happen. I know, like growing up, my family and I always had to choose between having to pay our next meal or making sure if we had to like turn our heat down and not using the air conditioner or any other stuff in our own home. And that's one thing that I really, really care about, is making sure that the people like my own family that had to make those sacrifices and sometimes had to live without lighting in our own home, have the ability to do these things. And inclusive financing would be one method to actually accomplish that, but also making sure that it's accessible to every single person. Some people don't speak English. And if you don't put it in a different language, they won't have access to this information. And you also have to meet people where they're at. You can't just have a meeting at City Hall or a meeting community and expect people to know about these things. You have to meet people where they're at, face to face, in their door, at churches, at special locations where specific groups hang out, to make sure they have all the info that they need to make sure that this can happen.
Thank you, Mickey.
While everybody wants environmentally friendly movements, and we want to all get a better handle on issues like climate change and moving towards renewable energy, issues like this that are very specific and require specific expertise and experience need to be turned over to those people who have years, decades, whatever, involved with these exact issues. I am not a fracked gas electric heating development expert, okay? I'm happy to admit that to everybody. So what I would want to do is partner with groups like Community Power and others who have expertise in just this area, in this specific idea, and know how our city can move to accomplish the goals that we all share. We all want to have certain things accomplished, but how do we get there? We involve the experts. We don't use our own political agendas. We bring in people who really know what they're talking about and know how to get these kind of things done.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to actually have you stay on because you're going to answer the next question, Mickey. Do you support the rent stabilization and rent control charter amendment to allow both in the city and the ward? If so, is your commitment is your commitment public, and where can we as the public view it?
Well, you can always go to my website and you can always call me, because issues like these are very complicated and they require a lot more than 60 seconds to get it out there. The short answer is no. This rent stabilization charter amendment is not only ill-founded, it doesn't actually do anything. All it does is give our city council, our city government, the opportunity, if they so choose, in the future to address this issue if that's what they want to do. It doesn't actually do anything on its own. And rent control has been proven in many instances and across many different cities not to work, and in fact to do sometimes much more harm than good. Economists almost unanimously agree that government-sponsored and government-policy rent control is ineffective and often counterproductive. What works is transitioning people from renting into home ownership. That gets at the fundamental underlying issues that cause our affordable housing crisis, the wealth equity gap, the home ownership gap. That's the approach that we need to take to solve our affordable housing crisis in Minneapolis.
Okay, Haji.
Thank you so much, Zainab. I support the rent control because one, financially, it's saving a lot of our community. I come from a East African community that I call Ward 9 home, and I get to hear their stories, and they're telling me they're not earning enough to pay some of the rents and the buildings they live in. So you want them to be homeless? Then we have to deal with the homeless and unhoused issue again. And some of the rent moratorium is about to expire right now as we speak. So if that is lifted and some of these communities are evicted, where are they going to live? And this is why this comes from a place of empathy. You have to understand. We have for 22 years I've said the rent has been too high. It's been too high, and people's income has not gone up. We need to increase people's income and how much they earn in an hour or monthly or yearly. And we can't just have one way and people just want to brush everything off like it's people don't care. We have to care because that's who we are.
I'm gonna cut you off, Haji. I'm sorry, your time's up. I have to be the bad guy. Jason Chavez.
Yeah, I support both those rent stabilization and rent control. It's on my website because I know you asked where you can find or the public can see. It's on my website. I also have door knocked with Powder Horn residents to allow and let our neighbors here in Ward 9 know that this is an opportunity for us to do. But I want to make clear, while I support this, we need to go beyond that. We need a complete housing bill of rights, like I said earlier, that includes income-based housing, right to counsel, has sprinklers in our building, and has a lot of these housing first initiatives to make sure we house every single person in our ward. So, yep.
Awesome. Thank you. Devin, we still have a lot of time or no?
Yeah, we've got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, great. And I know we'll have a little bit. Okay, cool. So our next question is, will you be actively establishing an overdose prevention site in your ward or in the city of Minneapolis?
Yusuf, me?
Yes, Yusuf. You called yourself out, so I'm going to give it to you.
I roll the dice. Yes. Most of our communities, especially have been big part of conversation of overdose in our communities. It has really affected many of our youths, in Ward 9 especially. Mothers are crying out, fathers are crying out, families are crying out. Children are just out there, and yes, I would like to set up a space that is able to provide some sense of safety, in knowing that people are there and that we're supporting them through the process of addiction and giving them the necessary support. Again, I'm speaking from a place of empathy. A lot of people here speak big. A lot of people here say eloquently try to project this power of what they can do or what they can, what they want and what they envision. I'm only saying that because at the end of the day, we have to understand that I am a father of 4, and I cannot imagine myself looking and knowing that where are my children and are they in a safe place, even if they're going through what they're going through and the struggles that they're going through. It's a big challenge. Mental health is a big thing in our communities. We're traumatized from civil war to police brutality to everyday interactions and in this space that we call Ward 9 with each other, even because of the places and the poverty we live in. So this is what it's all about.
Thank you, Haji. Yes, most appreciated. Thank you. Who do we have next now?
Nikki.
Okay, so this is a great example of the type of issue that people all around the country, cities all around the country have been struggling with, and some have attacked it intelligently and successfully, and some have not. Minneapolis needs to employ many more strategies for dealing with overdose and the various problems that are causing it and the fallout of these issues. And we need to take our cues and our clues from the other cities that have gone through the experimentation process and found out what works and what doesn't work. We can establish these prevention sites in every ward throughout the city. And if they're effective and they're useful, then that's something that we absolutely need to fully fund and work to produce as many times and as many places as we can. So it's an idea that needs the experience and expertise of people that have been there, done that, and achieved success with it to be brought in and used to help us develop our policies and programs.
Jason?
Yeah, I support this. The only thing I would add would be that they have to be culturally specific. I know our indigenous community and our East African community that have had overdoses here in the past year and years in the years before would need more of a culturally specific prevention site to help with what's going on. And to me, while I don't have like a family that has overdosed, I did grow up with my father who did drink a lot and was addicted to alcohol. So this topic does get close to my heart, and something that I'm going to work with, especially our East African and indigenous communities, to figure out how we're going to get to the bottom of this and how we can help support and not punish, which is something that we've been doing for the past years. So I support it 100%. I think it's a step in the right direction, but we'll need to do a lot more than just that.
Thank you so much. We have one last question for all of you, and then I will actually start with you, Jason. I know Devin has to get out. Devin, are you staying on or are you?
Yeah, I can help you wrap it up here.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Our last question is, are you willing to support North Minneapolis residents' efforts to hold the Northern Meadow facility accountable for their negative environmental impacts in one of Minneapolis's largest Black communities? If you haven't already, would you sign onto a letter from community members for environmental justice stating your support for Minneapolis residents' right to healthy environment and opposition to the threat from the Northern Meadow facility? Jason?
Yeah, I would. I already signed on to it today. So I'm very excited about that. And I think that's something that we need to do. And the reason why it's so personal to Ward 9, even though it's not here, is the fact that something similar happened here with the East Phillips Indoor Urban Farm. People weren't listening to our community members, and similar things have happened on the north side with that. And we just need to make sure that we can actually have clean air, clean water, and clean soil where people can actually live their actual lives. And I stand with the people to make sure that we stop that and make sure that our Black community is actually being listened to and not being ignored. So I think that was the only question, right? If I support it, yeah.
And on a letter from community members for environmental justice.
Yeah, so yeah, okay. it needs to stop, so.
Okay, so you would sign on to our letter?
Yeah, I signed on to it today, yep.
Okay, thank you so much. And then Haji?
Yes, I will sign on to it right now. Where is it? Let me find it. Let me look at it. No, yes. I always believe two things, and that's why we need to work on this. And this has to be something that is important for all of us collectively to get it done. I feel there is two threats facing our Black, Brown, and Indigenous community, and our LGBTQ plus as well communities. And that is policing and our environment. And Northern Metal is one threat for the generation of Black children going around that neighborhood is a threat. And so, yes, we need to speak up, we need to fight, we need to make sure everything is being done to remove this space away from these communities of color so that every child can have an opportunity to grow healthy, right? And I'm gonna sign that right now once I get it in front of me.
Thank you. Mickey Moore?
When I believe it was Sheila Najad, who's a candidate for mayor, was advocating for this issue several weeks ago, I not only signed on right away, I also offered any assistance I could, because this environmental justice issue is critical to our Ward 9 residents and business owners. We understand the destructive potential of environmental pollution and environmental injustice. Our ward is a green zone. We are one of the most polluted wards in the city, if not the most polluted ward in the city. And our history, our negative history, is borne out through the healthcare disparities that we suffer from. So these are critical issues that matter. It's not just surface issues. These go to our underlying quality of life issues that affect us for generations. So this is the kind of issue that I will be advocating for as a council member. In fact, I'm only interested in serving on 3 types of committees. One of them is the environmental committees, because I think it's that critical of an issue for our community and for our future.
Okay, so you would also sign on to a letter?
I'm pretty sure that I signed on to this letter back when it was first promoted 3 weeks ago.
Okay, thank you. Just clarifying for the delegate that's asking. And then that was our last question. We have park board candidates joining us, and we will give each of them 2 minutes to do their speech. Becky, you're first.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. Devin, Zainab, thank you so much for organizing this. Muchísimas gracias a todos por poder estar aquí hoy con ustedes. My name is Becky Alper, and I'm running for Minneapolis Park Board District 3. I'm a Seward resident. I'm married to an immigrant and a working mom with 2 biracial kids, one of whom goes to daycare in Ward 9, so I'm there every day. I have worked for many years in sustainable transportation and urban planning, and I am passionate about making parks work for all people, from my 4-year-old daughter to my 84-year-old father. Parks were so important to us this past year, from a source of mental and physical health to a community gathering space. And for me personally, my best memory of last summer was on a car-free parkway, watching my 6-year-old daughter learn to ride her bicycle without training wheels for the first time. And this really holds a special place in my heart. I joined this race because I believe that District 3 residents deserve leadership on the park board. There are serious issues affecting our park system, from aging infrastructure to wetter climates to increasing wealth disparities across our city. And you deserve a commissioner who is going to be there for you, who will listen, who will make educated decisions based on the best available information, who will be at every meeting, and who will read every page of background material. And I pledge to be that person. We need to make sure our park facilities and programming are the best they can be for all Minneapolis residents. We have an opportunity to improve access to parks by making our parks more accessible to people walking and biking and taking transit. And we have an obligation to prepare our parks for the effects of climate change and to leave them better off for our youngest residents. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope that you'll vote to endorse me, Becky Alper, for Parks District 3, and thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. And I do just want to mention to everyone watching that the park board races will be on your city ballot. The city ballot comes out on Wednesday, but the reason why we've invited the park board district candidates is the districts are very specific to geographic wards of the city. So just in case you're wondering why you're not seeing park board candidates on your ward ballot. But do want to say thanks to everyone who's participated. Thanks to all the candidates again for running. Thanks to everyone for watching. I'll pass it off to Zainab if she's got anything else.
Cool. I don't have a lot. I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us today and for also putting your name on the ballot and for voting. Thank you to all the delegates that have became part of the process and that are voting. Thank you so much. It's all of you that make this process work. I'm going to give each of you, or are we doing closing statements? Is that it?
It's up to you. I'm going to go head out to say hi to Ward 10.
Okay, great. I will give each of the candidates 2 minutes to do their closing statements, but thank you all for joining and hope you have a great day. We will start with Haji.
Thank you, Zainab, for this 2 minutes closing. I'm not going to take 2 minutes. You all know what's at stake. You all know what's important. You all know why we have to go through what we're going through every day, and we need to continue having this conversation. Nobody's perfect. We are not perfect, but we need to listen to each other collectively. We need to care deeply and have empathy for each other and understand that we hurt when we share joy, and we are a community, and we are each other's. We must have each other's back. Like I've said, and I'm going to say it again, I am running on the idea of each one of us collectively having a say in what kind of Ward 9 we want to have, and as a space for our communities. So I ask all of you, the delegates, to give me an opportunity, and hopefully you can rank me so that I'm endorsed in the DFL, and hopefully we can continue having this great conversation and participate in making Ward 9 what it should be moving forward.
Thank you. Mickey Moore.
Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to just reiterate why I'm running, to represent the businesses and the residents here in our 9th Ward. It's a critical time. I was inspired or motivated or compelled or felt obligated to step up and lend some amount of leadership to our community on the day that George Floyd was tragically murdered. I could recognize as a lifelong resident of Minneapolis how deeply and devastatingly that tragic event was going to affect our community. And I thought it was an opportunity to provide some leadership, some direction, and some focus for a community that I knew was going to be frustrated and upset over the way things have been happening for a long time. That was a last straw type event, a straw that broke the camel's back type of event. It wasn't a one-off. And as we can see lately, more recently, it's not the end. It's not the last time we're going to have to face critical challenges. So what it calls for is somebody that has real experience, somebody that's been through a long time fire and has been baptized by the accomplishments of our city in the past. I have seen how social programs can work to instruct and inspire our youth to stay away from gangs and guns. And we need to bring those kind of proven programs back into our social atmosphere so that all of our residents feel safe and invited to the kind of opportunities that a great city like Minneapolis ought to have across the board, across all of our institutions, in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of our education, in terms of all the great opportunities, economic and social, that we should be providing for our residents and business owners. And I'd like to be able to provide that for people in the 9th Ward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Jason Chavez Cruz.
Yeah, and I'll make mine quick as well. Hi, everyone, again. Thank you all for being here today. I'm very excited to speak to all of you today. Again, my name is Jason Chavez. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm an LGBTQ plus Latino, an organizer. Huh? What? Okay, I thought someone said something. Okay, an organizer and a policy worker. And my promise is to always be on the ground, to listen to those most impacted by policy and being responsive to people, which is something that we've been missing. I plan to use my organizing experience to bring communities together to find solutions to our most pressing issues. And I also plan to use my legislative experience working on policy to make sure that we actually get what is needed to get done, to make sure our ward has the resources they need to thrive. Our campaign is a community-led, community-centered campaign, which truly means that the people on the ground, that the people most impacted by policy are the ones that are leading our efforts to make sure that the Ward 9 is not being forgotten about. If you want to contact me, my email is at info@jasonchavez.org. My cell phone number is 612-227-9728, 612-227-9728. I'd love to have a conversation with you, and I just appreciate you all sharing space with me today.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And that is all. Hope you all have a wonderful day.
Okay, stay cool.
Alrighty.
Sure.